Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry has called for transparent disbursement of the $500 million World Bank loan earmarked for Nigerian SMEs and vulnerable communities. The Chamber emphasized the need for a robust monitoring framework to prevent misallocation. It also urged the government to prioritize concessional financing for viable projects, advocating for tax reforms and economic diversification to reduce reliance on external debt. Beyond immediate relief, the Chamber stressed the importance of structural reforms to foster a conducive business environment, ensuring the loan's long-term impact. To unpack this, I am joined by Dr. Femi Egbesola, President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria, ASBON. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Right. I mean, like you already know, the federal government has secured a loan under the Community Action for Resilience and Economic Stimulus Program of the World Bank. We understand this is meant for small businesses and vulnerable communities. Talk to us. What are your expectations?
Well, we hope that this time this will be done differently. And if it is done differently, it means that it will impact on the MSME community. For long, it's been identified that finance or access to finance has been a major challenge of MSMEs in Nigeria. And every action towards creating more access to finance really will help to stimulate that sector. So this World Bank loan, I think, will go a long way to stimulate the MSME sector and bring about growth if it is done differently, like I mentioned the other time.
I'd like to come to if it is done differently, but before we come to that, I mean, let's also look back. In 2024, the federal government earmarked 50 billion naira as grant for nano businesses, and then there was a 150 billion naira as loan at 9% to MSMEs, SMEs, and manufacturers through the Bank of Industry. Are you, or I mean, is any of your members a beneficiary? Yes,
yes. A pocket of our members got the 50,000 naira loan meant for nano. That's what we're able to access.
I thought it was a grant and not a loan.
Sorry, it's a grant rather. Yes,
okay.
It's a grant. Don't mind me. It's a grant. 50,000 naira grant for a number of our members. That's a good one. But if you look at it really, what can 50,000 naira do in today's economy? If you convert that to dollar, it's less than $1. And that may not really yield the kind of impact that government expected to have. So we're looking at a turnaround where we can have more impactful funding, where the volume of the fund will be more, and perhaps getting right to the real needed SMEs who may actually need this fund to cater for their business and to be able to scale and grow.
All right. I mean, we understand about half of the 50 billion naira was disbursed within H1 2024. And then the 150 billion naira for manufacturers and MSMEs was sort of postponed to September 2024. Are you aware of the current status of any of these? I mean, especially the 150 billion naira for MSMEs, SMEs, and manufacturers.
Well, I cannot particularly say that this is the status of the grants of the loan at this point, because we are not part of the team for monitoring and evaluation of that particular scheme. And that's one of the things we have been advocating for over time, that when it comes to federal government grants, loan and intervention programs, it is always key for all key stakeholders to be part of the initiative so that we can also monitor and evaluate and be able to talk about it and be able to measure the impact and be able to also send our recommendation based on what we have been able to see, what we have been able to also uphold when it comes to supporting these MSMEs. So for us, we do not have the data to support the impactfulness or otherwise of the fund. We do not also have any engagement with government to actually testify to the number of people or MSMEs that are eventually beneficiaries of this loan.
All right. You know, when I asked you earlier, you talked about the 50,000 naira, which of course is a part of the 50 billion naira for nano businesses. But then the 150 billion naira is targeted to people like you. You are a manufacturer and you also run a consumer service business. So were you able to get any of that, or did any of your colleagues also get that, apart from the one for nano businesses?
To be very honest with you, none of our members, none of our over 50,000 members across the nation is able to access the fund meant for the manufacturers. We only get to get the 50,000 naira allocated for nano businesses, and that's what we have to today.
All right, I guess we're going to follow up on that. Now, let's move on now. Nigeria currently grapples with mounting economic challenges, which of course includes inflationary pressures. Though NBS is disinflation, I don't know what you see. And we also have declining purchasing power and an increasing, burdensome debt profile. Which of these bothers you the most, and what has been the impact on businesses?
Well, it's unfortunate that we find ourselves in this quagmire where we have to continue to borrow and borrow and borrow, and it has become the order of the day. For us, it's impacting very negatively on the economy and, of course, on the growth of small businesses in Nigeria, particularly for the reason that some of the funds that government ought to generate and to be used for creating more conducive environment, fixing infrastructure and all of that will promote the ease of doing business is going back to the repayment of loans. And I think it's a quick time. Government needs to begin to be more innovative about raising revenue to solve the problems and challenges of the nation beyond just foreign loan. It's come to a point also where we discovered that this is already becoming discouraging to a number of MSMEs who find it very, very challenging and difficult to operate in Nigeria because of the myriads of challenges that are facing MSMEs. And one of it is because funds that are expected to be used to incentivize the sector is going back to repayment of loan. We look forward to a time where the MSMEs will be strong enough, government will be able to empower them enough to also generate revenue. MSMEs can generate all the revenue that government needs if they are given that push that they need. We have over 40 million MSMEs in Nigeria. We can generate more than double of the GDP we are generating at the moment if only government decide to support us the more. And if that happens, we will discover that many of the funds that government are chasing about continents will be available for us to use here in Nigeria and promote more MSMEs, promote our young ones to also be more engaged, and that will be a win-win-win situation for everybody.
I mean, there is no gainsaying, we can't even overflog it, the fact that businesses need funding. Now the government is talking about, this. What are your thoughts or recommendations on ensuring that there is no misallocation and the right people and not some political business owners get this money? I mean, what solution do you proffer in that aspect?
The first thing is that one of the challenges we have with funding when it comes to government is the bureaucratic bottlenecks. I think it's important for government to begin to simplify that. One of it is the application process. It's difficult for many MSMEs to apply for this loan because of so many application processes and bottlenecks that are in between the way. Another thing is corruption and mismanagement. You discover that many of these funds do not actually get to the intended beneficiaries, who are the MSMEs. They get into the hands of what we call political business owners, and that they bar the real MSMEs from getting this fund and making use of it. You also discover that the issue of awareness is another thing. Many of the MSMEs are not aware of quite a number of intervention programs or loans or grants that government is rolling out. Some of them are in the rural area, a number of them are in the informal sector, and they find it difficult to also get to know about this initiative. Again, too, is the issue of the requirements, particularly the documentation. Many of the MSMEs do not have the kind of documentation that is expected by government based on their requirements to access the loan and to be able to make good use of the fund. And that has debarred a lot of MSM accessing the fund. And that's why you will discover that over the time, 5, 10, 15, 20% of the entire loan package are being annexed by MSMEs. The remaining 80, 90% go back to the government because nobody is able to access it, because the MSMEs cannot meet up with the documentation and the requirement that is expected to help them to have access the fund. Again, too, you discover that quite a number of politicians hijack the system along the way, making it impossible for MSMEs to actually get the fund. The issue of who comes to play, and you discover that eventually the MSMEs are not able to make good use of the fund. Well, like I mentioned the other time, it is good to involve MSMEs and particularly business membership organization and other critical stakeholders in the monitoring and evaluation of any initiative, particularly funding initiative for MSMEs, so that it will be that we will co-create, co-hold, co-monitor, co-implement, and co-evaluate at the end of the exercise, which will bring about credibility, ensure that the right people get it, and also make sure that the needed impact is created by monitoring those who get the fund, making sure that if it is a loan, they repay back, and using it for the intended purpose that the loan is meant for. If this happens, you will discover that the story will be different and we'll be able to measure a tangible impact of these intervention funds over the time. And we'll also be able to make MSMEs to grow and scale, which is very, very key to our economy this time. There's no job anywhere. The only way we can promote wellness in Nigeria now is to ensure that we stimulate the economy by creating a conducive environment, putting the ease of business for people to do business. And one of the key factors, like I mentioned, is funding. If funding is available and accessible to MSMEs, the story of Nigeria and our economy will be a different one.
All right. I know some would say, handouts like these are only short-term measures. I mean, I know people who would say they're not even interested in some of this social security stuff, especially when it comes to handouts. But be that as it may, if well disbursed, can we expect a significant impact on businesses, households, and even the economy?
Well, if this fund is disbursed and it is disbursed to the right beneficiaries, I want to say that within the first 3-6 months, we will begin to see impact. At the moment now, MSMEs cannot walk to the bank for loan because of the high interest rate. So if this is coming at a single indicated interest rate and becomes less cumbersome to access, you will discover that MSMEs is going to grow and bloom. And that's exactly what we need now in the economy. And you begin to see the impact almost immediately because many of the MSMEs that we have around, particularly those that we have under our own umbrella, are not operating optimally because of fund. They need fund to operate. And this is becoming a serious challenge that we need to tackle immediately. So for us, it is good news that this World Bank loan is coming. For us, it is good news that the government has thought in their wisdom to ensure that this fund is meant for MSMEs. But the next thing is to ensure that it gets to the hands of the MSMEs. And I can assure you that in no distant time, 3-6 months' time, we'll begin to reap the benefits of this fund. We'll begin to also see growth in the MSME sector. We'll begin to see raising revenue in the MSME sector. And it will also encourage our youth to embrace entrepreneurship and also become business owners who will eventually begin to also turn over tax and other revenue to government that will help to enable our economy.
Right. So beyond these loans from government, what other structural or long-lasting solution will you prefer?
Well, the long-lasting solution is for government to fix key infrastructure that is needed for business. Key infrastructure like power, key infrastructure like road, key things like the insecurity we have at the moment, ensuring that access to finance is no barrier for business owners, making sure that business owners are enabled to be able to maximize their capacities. And if that is done, you will see that there's going to be a big bloom in what we have now to what we are expecting from the MSME sector. What we are expecting from the MSME sector is for us to be able to see many of us being able not only to satisfy local demand, but be able to also export to other countries and earn foreign exchange for the country. We want to see MSMEs growing by the day in numbers, not dying like we have at the moment. We want to see young graduates choosing to become entrepreneurs rather than looking for white-collar job because they feel entrepreneurship is not the way to go. We need to change this narrative. The story just must change. And if it does, you'll discover that Nigeria will come debt-free because we'll be able to raise the kind of fund we need for ourselves and be able to use it to fix those things we want in the system. And that will be for the good of everyone.
Well, apart from this, I mean, debt is another issue of concern here. Are you equally as concerned as many have, posited?
Yes, I'm concerned. Everybody is concerned. If anybody, whether it is a business or a nation, is going into debt, we are always concerned, particularly when we are not too sure of the good use of the debt. And particularly when debt keeps to be mounting. When debt is mounting and it keeps mounting, it's a red flag. And nobody wants to near a red flag. For us, it's time for us to begin to look inward, to be more creative about our finances and our economy, to be more innovative about our fiscal policies, so that we will begin to see change. We don't want a country that will be indebted. We also do not want businesses that will be indebted and will not be able to pay. This is the narrative we want to change. And I believe that if the government of the state decide to look inward, we can all together change this narrative.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Femi Egbesola, for your time and your thoughts on Business Edge today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.